Do you want to learn how to get retired, stay retired, and enjoy your life to the fullest? This is the Retire Happy Podcast with certified financial planner professional Jeremy Finger. Jeremy will be your guide to happiness as he discusses the art and science of retirement, breaking down the complicated information to help you make good financial decisions without worry or burden. Now, onto the show.
Hello and welcome to Retire Happy with Jeremy Finger. Jeremy, what's going on?
Oh, just living life, helping people get retired and stay retired.
Stay retired. I like that thought. I'd like to get retired first, I suppose, and then that would be nice to stay retired.
Just keep listening to the podcast we put out and read what I write, and you're on your way.
I don't think I've ever asked you. I'm going to ask you a question before we get this podcast started. When you quote unquote retire, right? What would be the one hobby that you would want to do after you retire? What are you going to do?
You talking about me? Like what I would want to do? Yeah. I mean, I'm already doing them because, just play golf and maybe a little bit of tennis, pickleball. I even thought about this, and I kid you not, this is what I've just been mulling over the past, 6 weeks or so. Taking a motorcycle tour, like one of those enduro bikes out in the woods, going from through the deserts and stuff like that. There are tours out there that can do this over 3 or 4 or 5 days from like Utah to Arizona. And I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be pretty amazing. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. You see the good old US of A, but see the real side of it,
Yeah. Not just on a highway.
Yeah. It's not just you're going across the interstate.
Yeah. I-80 through Nebraska. It's 8 hours of corn. So yeah, that's no fun.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Different off the beaten path, so to speak. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And so just have some little time with your thoughts and back to nature. I mean, on a motorcycle. So anyway, It's just a thought. How about you?
Well, when you get ready to do that, call me because I'm all about being on a bike.
All right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now you're open for being on a bike and being out in the woods and being out in nature.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I love it. Yeah. I used to mountain bike, where you actually had to pedal. Now I'm too old for that. So yeah, a motorcycle would be great. Just being honest.
Okay. Yeah. No. That's what it's all about. All right. Well, we'll have to chat about that then.
All right. That sounds good. But before we do that, you've got a pretty big topic today. What are we talking about?
We're talking about what is a fiduciary and why is it important to have a fiduciary financial advisor helping you out, and what to also ask them and qualifying questions and things like that, so that when you are choosing the right an advisor, you put more odds in your favor for being able to get good advice.
Okay. Well, you've spoken about a fiduciary on this podcast before, but do me a favor and just redefine it for the audience with the definition of what a fiduciary truly is.
Okay, perfect. A fiduciary is a person or organization that owes legal obligation to act in the best interest of another party. So in other words, they're legally obligated to put your best interest above their own.
Okay. So let's ping pong back and forth a little bit.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you a job title, and you tell me whether there's a fiduciary standard there or not.
Okay, perfect.
Car salesman.
No.
Didn't think so.
No.
That's the only example I've got. No, I'm just kidding. So, okay.
That's right.
How about a lawyer?
Yes.
Okay. That would make sense.
And let me clarify that a little bit. If the lawyer you're talking to does not have a legal obligation to look out for your best interest, they will tell you. Like, I've had clients who unfortunately go through divorce, and one spouse gets a call from the other spouse's attorney, and the lawyer will start off by saying, "I want to be very clear. I'm representing your spouse, not you, but this is what I'm saying for you. I'm asking you to do." So they're very, very clear. So, proceed.
Doctor.
Yes. Hippocratic oath.
Okay.
Do no harm.
Best interest. Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's right.
All right. Now let's bring it on home. Advisor, financial advisor, and I'm sure you're going to cover this.
Yeah. I'm going to say sometimes.
There you go.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And you've kind of explained it on previous podcasts, not in depth. So I'm excited that you're going to dive into it today.
Yeah. Look, I have to say, Eric, there's a little bit of sadness in this, and
really,
yeah, it is. I don't I don't like that it's not cut and dry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of sadness in this. And the reason is that it's not clear, and it's not clear. Unfortunately, I think because it's intentional.
I'm sure people don't want it necessarily to be clear, but from what I understand, those that are fiduciaries are very proud of the fact that they're fiduciaries.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's yeah, I mean that's what I am, and it's just a little sad that a lot of the advice that's being given out there can have tremendous conflicts of interest, and but then maybe I'm naive to think that the world is, all, good for everybody, and it's just not. So let me dive into that a little bit. Okay, so if your financial advisor works for a big firm, very, very, very likely that these firms have shareholders that are publicly traded. They have legal obligation to look out for their shareholders.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
All right. And I kid you not. This is just, again, a very, very sad story. That I was working with a previous firm, and it made a lot more sense for my client to go to a smaller bank because they had flexible terms with the type of loan that he was looking for. Yep. And so I was talking about, recommending him to another type of bank, a smaller bank, not the one associated with my brokerage firm. And I had upper management, I kid you not, use these almost exact words. We have to look out for our shareholders, and so you can't refer them to that bank. And I looked at this person dead in the eye, and I said, do you think my client is looking to me to look out for the shareholders and not their own best interest? They didn't say anything. And when the person left my office, and I'm going to say this on this podcast, and that was like a God moment for me. It's like there's a test being thrown my way. And so I sat there, and I'm like, what I said here is like, there's got to be a better way to give financial advice in this world than this. There's got to be. And that was the moment where I spent about almost a year researching different areas and things, and get more clarity about what a fiduciary is, Eric, and what platforms and services that where a good financial advisor or financial advisor can give advice in a fiduciary manner.
Yeah. And my history, I've been a coach for a long time and worked with a lot of financial advisors in different aspects. And that story that you just told is not unfamiliar. I had one gentleman that said it was the straw that broke the camel's back for him when he was researching a couple different things within their product line, right? I'm using air quotes, product line.
Yeah.
And when he talked to his manager about it, well, I think this would be better for my client. Manager looked straight at him and said, well, what's best for you? And what's best for the company? And that was that aha moment. Well, why would that matter? What's best for my client? Yeah. Didn't last long there, right? Because they knew that they weren't doing what was best for the client. The client, their entire future is on the line. It's just one person. A corporation is just a corporation. Yeah,
that's right. Now, here's another thing. I'm getting off on a little philosophical rant. I this is the question I said, well, if I know what I now know, and I know it to not be in alignment with who I am, and I stay, I'm a sellout. It'll feel like it'll poke holes in my soul. So that was the moment, really. But okay, so all right. So here's the deal. I sat in the same firm, and someone would say, well, are we fiduciaries? And they could say yes. They can be fiduciaries for part of the time, which is insanity. So, and then it's not like they flip on a light, oh, I'm now a fiduciary, and they flip off the light, oh, now I'm not a fiduciary. They may be able to say that I'm a fiduciary some of the time, and some of the time I'm not. And they're not a fiduciary 100% of the time, because they can recommend something and that's in alignment with what the firm is. And And that sounds all nice and dandy, but as soon as it goes against what the firm wants or firm's requirements are, it's a different story. And they take the hat off and they don't notify you.
Yeah,
the client being.
I don't understand how they can do that. I just don't. That doesn't make sense to me. Legally, how can they say I'm a fiduciary some of the time?
Yeah, yeah. And here's the thing: is it I'm sure they got big lobbies that pay a lot of money to a lot of people.
No, it's true.
Yeah, and it's like a big rock rolling downhill. It's hard to stop. And but see, and we're kind of getting a little bit, 30,000-foot view about the industry, but a lot of heads are moving from these types of organizations to independent RIAs, registered investment advisors, where they can be a fiduciary.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so when you hear, and I'm just saying from the listeners here, when you're hearing that someone's dually registered, I mean, that kind of is like, oh, I'm a fiduciary some of the time, and then I can be not a fiduciary some of the time. That's a little bit, but if you're RIA only and your fee only, you can be a fiduciary 100% of the time. And that's one question that I would encourage people to ask their advisor. Are you a fiduciary 100% of the time? Now, I'm going to say this. It's possible that your advisor may not even know. I mean, really? Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it is.
How would they not know that they're a fiduciary?
Well, I've talked to people at other firms, and that, if someone asked them, "Are you a fiduciary?" Yeah, I'm a fiduciary.
Oh, they just don't know. As in other words, they think they are, but they really don't understand the true concept of it.
Yeah, that's true. And then they also say, "Well, I'm a fiduciary, but I'm not 100." The question: Are you a fiduciary? Here's the better question: Are you a fiduciary 100% of the time?
Mm-hmm.
That's the better question. That's the better question.
Yeah.
And then there may be some pause there. So now you said 100%. And it's like, okay, all right, well, maybe hang on a second before I answer that question. Let me see.
Yeah.
And that's Eric, damn, that's some sadness in that.
Yeah.
I guess if I owned the whole firm, let's just say I was a big, huge, giant thing. And yeah, I mean, would I want my people to look out for the firm? Yeah. But can a doctor or an attorney do their best work and be a fiduciary and look out? Yeah, they absolutely can. Mm-hmm. And does it mean that they're going to get all the meat off the bone from the client and be all benefits for the firm? No. But guess what? It's okay with doing the right thing and letting the rest go.
Correct. If you're doing good, and this is an old saying we used to talk to the kids about, if you do good, you get good. Right. So if you're doing right by the client, I can imagine that referrals are going to be coming in more, and better referrals, right? Because they're singing your praises, man. They really changed our lives by doing A, B, and C, and they always put us first, right? And I think that that's missing in a lot of companies, right? There's a lot of the major companies. I call in for tech support on any issue on any of my computers, my phones, whatever. They're not putting me first. I'm in a queue for an hour and a half to start with. And then I talk to somebody who doesn't understand my problem, and then I get hung up on. So there you go.
Yeah, that's right. And they're like, what can I say to this person to get them off the phone?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But the more important thing is that I think about is who gives a crap about the money if you're empty inside, right? If you know that you're doing something that's not right, or you're unsure of that, or you have internal conflict, I mean, that just eats you up. And so, yeah, okay, you get an extra digit in your bank account, but you lose your peace. Was it worth it?
Yeah, but here's the thing, Jeremy, you're wired differently. You're just wired differently. I know you well enough to say this because we've talked before about my first insurance experience where my buddy was selling insurance. I bought insurance term. I was 23 years old, something like that. He just got into the business. This is what he wanted to do. 6 months later, he was out of the business because he didn't like the company. I was with that company for 10 full years. right? Because it was a 10-year term. Nobody from that company contacted me except for 1 month before my 10-year term ran up. And then somebody's interested in me. Oh, we want to talk to you about, blah, 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 upping your term and so on and so forth. And sounded so caring and concerned about my family and I. Where have you been for 9.5 years?
Yeah.
Right. They were seriously only there to make sales, and they were happy about it. I don't think it damaged their soul at all, Jeremy, because that's how they were wired, and they just didn't care.
Well, no, okay, I'm going to push back on that.
All right.
So they may say this, and what they may think and feel is that, okay, if I get another sale, that's good. But what happens is that they don't have peace. They just keep looking for the next thing to fill the void.
Fair enough.
So they're trying to fill, well, and this is obviously my thoughts is like, they're trying to fill something inside of them that will never be filled.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I mean, if your heart's full, then you're free to make good decisions and you're free to do the right thing in spite of the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, no, I'm not doing that damn thing.
Yeah.
Saying no to where some things that is not in alignment. So that's another thing I would say for the listeners is that, okay, great. You ask, okay, great. Are you a fee only? Are you a fiduciary 100% of the time? Are they in alignment, right? Is their website and what they say congruent with how do you feel when you talk to them? Are they looking out? Are they asking questions for your best interest?
Mm-hmm.
Are they getting to know you and what's important to you? Right? Is their service model? Is there a way that they communicate all that in alignment? Or is it just a brochure and then what's real is not there? Right? Oh, it's got a great package, but the meat is spoiled. So to speak.
Yeah. No. You're spot on. You're right. For sure.
Yeah, that's that. Unfortunately, that's the kind of world there is out there. And so another things that the listeners can do is, check disciplinary records. There's a lot of good financial advisors and good people that do good work, but there could be times when they are not a fiduciary. Even if you're a certified financial planner, which I am, right? And you could be a certified financial planner and work with another firm that will put you in a situation or could put you in a situation where you have to act in the best interest of the firm, even though you're supposed to be acting in the best interest of the client. So again, what I'm saying by that is that the designations don't necessarily mean that this person's a fiduciary or not.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Also,
I would if I was really kind of thinking about what some other things that a client can ask is, are they members of other professional organizations like the Financial Planning Association or the Investment Management Consulting Association? These types of organizations that we pay a decent amount of money in a year to further our education. That's also helpful.
Yeah. Okay. What else? What else should they be asking?
How are you compensated? What fees will I be charged?
Okay.
And how often? Right. Mm-hmm. And what am I getting for those fees? What's my expectation? What is my how are we going to communicate? What if my goals change? Hey, you're on that motorcycle going, you're on a trip with me and you break your leg. Jeremy, I'm tired of this retirement riding motorcycles. I want to do something different. I don't want to do this type of retirement. I'm going back to work. I'm done with retirement. I want to go back to work. And so,
well, I'm not going to that extreme. I'm just trading the motorcycle for a boat. You know me, right?
Oh, okay. All right. I got you. So you're doing that. And, and it's like, okay, how do I make something different? How do I alter the plan? I kid you not. So that, like, real example, I had a client of mine who retired and a month later decided to go back to work. And, And so how does it work when you're adjusting the plan? Hopefully the financial advisor you're doing is doing an overall plan. How does that work? Right? What are the processes in place? Are they looking out for, hey, not only your best interest, but your spouse's best interest, your children, thinking in terms of succession planning? If you're charitable inclined, how do you magnify the charitable charitable impact? Okay.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference. There's just a few things that you can talk about.
Well, here's the thing: is I think that a very clear way that the plan changes, in my opinion, is when you first have kids, right? And one of my goals is like, I want to leave them, generational wealth. I want to leave them a bunch of money because my parents couldn't do that. And so it'd be a nice gift for them. Right. And then as you get older and your kids, get through college or whatever, and they become very successful, then you're like, meh, they don't need my money. So now I want to have a really good retirement. I want to spend it all. We want to travel the world because they don't need an inheritance because they make good money and they're financially set. They're fine. Right. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, now I got grandkids. Oh, now I want to leave my grandkids a bunch of money or I want to pay for their college or whatever. So all these little pivots are full changes to a plan that, could have been going in so many different directions.
100% the case. I had a client the other day. All right. They came in, they had a place up in, I think, Minnesota, and they get a condo down here. And the guy's like, he's like, man, I'm from Minnesota. And I'm like, and he's like, I just want to cut grass. Not a profession. I just want to have a yard. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And they're like, want to retire early because their work is stressful. All right. We put a plan together in a couple of years. And then 3 months later, this is just normal stuff, right? Hey, Jeremy, we're selling a house in Minnesota and we're buying a house here. How do we put the down payment? Where's the best place to do it tax efficiently? All right, great. Because we had all the stuff in the plan, it was, okay, this is how you do it, right? Yeah. It's thinking in terms of not just what the investments are, but the overall picture. When someone who is qualified, looks at the overall picture and has all that information, where the money can come from. The options that are available. These things can happen to where that the amount of stress, which they had stress for the few hours they were mulling this over, like, well, let's just talk to Jeremy and see how can we do this.
Yeah.
And I knew, this is how you do it. Boom, boom, boom. Call this person, do this thing. And I'll also notify this other person to do this with the mortgage company, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so they can just, they can focus on picking out doorknobs or whatever the hell it was.
That's right. Cabinet handles. That's a big thing. You got to pick the right cabinet handles.
Let me just say it this way. I'm never going to be the one picking out cabinet handles. No, I can care less. As long as the darn thing operates, that's all I want.
That's right. If I can get the spoon out for my ice cream, that's fine. That push the drawer in, it goes back in, I'm good.
That's right. That's right. You just had to bring up ice cream. That's my favorite dessert.
I know it is. You and I are wired very similarly.
Yeah. Just cold drinks, cold coffee for me. Yeah. Just all that stuff. So
it's good stuff.
Getting back to, if you don't mind, I'm going to get back to the fiduciary thing.
Sure. By all means.
Right. So there's really 4 types of financial advisors, in my opinion. Okay. Ones who disappoint. There's 4 Ds, by the way.
Okay.
Ones that disappoint. Ones that deliver. They invest money and they just do one thing. They invest money and they call it a day. And the other ones that delight, maybe they even exceed your expectations, right? And then the 4th one is defend. Like, in this world, knowing all the different conflicts of interest that are out there and all the different influences that are out there, the ones that defend you against the world to help you live your best life possible with the most amount of peace you can, that is special. Okay.
Yes.
And it's not easy, right? There's all these little shiny little objects out there that can get people off the path.
Mm-hmm.
Working with somebody that help you defend you against the world, and from temptations and blowing yourself up and going off the beaten path. And that's really the four types of in my opinion, the financial advisors that are out there. And the only way really that you can be in an area of defense is to be a fiduciary.
I want to bring it back to a question, because you brought up real estate. A real estate agent doesn't have to be a fiduciary, correct?
That's correct.
So I think that's a perfect example for someone who's your defender, right? Because if you're looking to buy a home and you get a real estate agent to represent you, maybe using your example, Minnesota to Florida, they're talking to an agent in Florida. That agent makes money based on the sale of the home. They're splitting the commission with the sales agent. So if they're the purchasing agent, they're going to split a commission. So there's no reason for them to talk them down a whole lot. They'd be happy you paying more for that house because they make more money, right? So having someone like you that has connections with reputable folks, or even you just to be able to bounce the idea off of, hey, this real estate agent's taking us to a couple different homes and here's what I'm looking at. Here's what the prices are. Does this seem right to you? You have a deep bench of folks that you can talk to and just say, hey, well, let me make a few phone calls and see if that's going to be in your best interest, right? Because maybe they have certain things that they need. It needs to be, less stairs because of their age or whatever. You know that, right? Because you're working very closely with these folks.
That's right.
I think that's a great example for someone who defends you against sharks, if you will, the ones that are out there just to make a buck off of you.
Yeah. Well, most of the world isn't fiduciaries.
Yeah.
That's just fact of the matter, right? Guess what you're going to get? Guess what the meat guy is going to try to sell you if you go to the meat department?
Filet mignon.
There you go. I mean, that's just the way it is. The world is. But yeah. I feel we have a curated connections that represent multiple different areas. And these different areas aren't necessarily fiduciaries. It could be a real estate agent, right? It could be someone who helps you with insurance. Okay. But we screen them the best we can and look at the world through your eyes, knowing what we know, and to see if what you're being presented is best for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look, is it perfect? No, it's absolutely not perfect. But is it the best we can in the world we got? Yeah. But our intent is to defend the hell out of it. Yeah. So that you can live your best life with the least amount of friction possible.
I would say the only perfect part is the fact that as a consumer, we have the opportunity to choose.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's the only perfect part. We can choose a fiduciary, or we can choose our brother-in-law's best friend. Right. Who knows what they're doing.
That's right. Or choose someone who's this, a good commercial on TV. And
that's right. They look good in a suit.
Right. Or, they got a pretty ivory tower. Right?
There you go.
Big old glass. Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. But, a lot of times people default to what's right in front of them. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to marry someone I grew up on the block with, versus really what might be best for them.
Yeah.
And, but there's a number of people who do it in that direction. But those who listen, like the listeners now, hey, maybe they're trying to be informed to make the next best decision that's good for them and their family.
Yeah.
And so hopefully they found this information useful.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. There's a lot in here. Folks, if you want to reach out to Jeremy, what's your contact info if they want to have further discussion with you and kind of talk through some of these things, or maybe vet some of the folks they're currently looking at working with you?
True, absolutely. And again, you could be working with a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people in a lot of places. And just because they're not 100% a fiduciary 100% of the time, they still may be good people. I mean, but my contact information is jeremy@riverbendwm.com, or you can call the office at 843-970-1049.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, you bet. And our last thank you will always go to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Retire Happy podcast with Jeremy Finger. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Jeremy comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask that you share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually does help others find the show. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Riverbend Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Happy podcast with certified financial planner Jeremy Finger. If you have any questions, please visit us at www.riverbendwealthmanagement.com or call us at 843-970-1043. And remember, click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor doing business as Riverbend Wealth Management. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.